The main conflict in a story is typically created by the antagonist. The antagonist is a character type that acts as the opposing force in your protagonist's story. As your protagonist works towards the main goals in their journey, the antagonist is there to stop them and create challenges. These challenges not only force your protagonist to grow as a character, but it also makes your story a lot more challenging. In today's video, we'll be talking about how to create an antagonist that will stand out in your manga, comic, or light novel. Follow along with this video with my pro character creation worksheet. It takes you step by step through the entire process, and it makes it an essential resource for creating any character in your manga, comic, or light novel. So when you begin to create your antagonist, you want to give them a clear opposing goal. So when doing this, you want to first think about what your protagonist's main goal is, or what the main goals are of the story. You want to ensure that whatever goal you give to your antagonist, it directly conflicts with what your protagonist wants. The stronger that there is more of a clash, the more compelling your story will be. So think about what gets in the way of your protagonist achieving their goal, and this is the goal that your antagonist should have. It's also important to note here that in many stories, the antagonist is not necessarily a character, but it can be a situation. So in some instances, you may not necessarily see an antagonist as a character, but the antagonist could be your character's doubts or fears, or the actual world around them. Maybe the entire world acts as a conflict if they are living in a dangerous setting. So I just wanted to mention this at the beginning, but in this video, we're going to be focusing more on creating an antagonist as an actual character. So when you're creating an antagonist as a physical character in your book, you also want to make sure that they have a believable motivation. So avoid making your antagonist evil for the sake of being evil. Give them reasons that actually make sense to your character. So does your antagonist want justice or revenge? Are they trying to survive? Or is this simply their beliefs and ideology? So give your antagonist a motivation that actually makes sense for the character. This makes them feel like someone who is actually believable. When creating a solid antagonist, you want to also give them a moral perspective. The antagonist in their story believes that they are the protagonist. To the antagonist, they are the main character in their story. The antagonist often believes they are right, or at least justified in their actions. They are not someone, even if they do evil or unjustified things, the antagonist will often believe that they are doing this for their own good purpose. This often adds depth to the character. So think about if your antagonist saw themselves as the main character in the story, how would this influence the way that they see their goal and make decisions? You'll often find that if you see the antagonist and their perspective in creating the goals, this will make them far more believable and interesting as characters. You also want to give the antagonist a connection to the protagonist. Integrate these characters through the story, whether it be through the history, through shared ideals, or through traits that are mirrored in both characters. So when you are developing the conflict in the story, even if these characters oppose each other in their goals and in their reasoning, there should also be something that connects both characters together. And this should make it feel more interesting when the protagonist eventually has to face this antagonist. So, for example, maybe in the lore of your story, it makes sense for these characters to face each other, or it could be that these characters both have similar thoughts in a particular way. Maybe they have had similar experiences, and your protagonist's journey reflects what your antagonist's journey could have been. This can make it more difficult for your antagonist when there's almost this jealousy where the antagonist sees the protagonist fulfilling the life that they wish they could have had. So you want to think about how you can show these dynamics in your protagonist and the antagonist. There will usually be some connection, even if it is small, that makes these characters feel more connected to each other. Your antagonist should also be someone who opposes the main theme of the story. They oppose the side of your theme that the protagonist shows. For example, if the main theme of your story is about freedom, then the antagonist should be someone who is very controlling and tries to manipulate the other characters around them. This will show the opposing side of the main theme of the story. This can be presented in any number of themes. Think about what the main theme of the story is, what your protagonist is aiming to do, and how your antagonist shows the opposing side of that concept. When creating your antagonist, you should actually make them feel threatening to the characters in the story. If your antagonist is someone who is easily defeated, or if they are constantly failing, then it will make them seem less intense as a villain. You want to show proof in your story of the true threat that the antagonist has. If the antagonist is physically dangerous, then show what happens as a result of the antagonist's actions. This will make it more significant when your protagonist does have to eventually face this antagonist in the story. Think about how you can make your antagonist someone who feels unique. An antagonist should not just be evil for the sake of being evil in your story. They should have an approach that sets them apart from other smaller enemies in your story. For example, in shonen series, the characters will usually face a number of smaller rivals or conflict characters who are directly there as a smaller opposing force in your character's journey. The antagonist should be someone who stands apart from them because they are more unique. So they might be someone who is more of a mastermind and really thinks about what actions they want to take before they make the decision. They might be someone who is able to manipulate other characters. So essentially the antagonist doesn't do anything. They just manipulate other characters to make them do the work for them. Or they might be someone who is incredibly strong and powerful and has trained throughout their journey to become this dangerous and strong character. Just think about what sets this character apart from smaller rivals or conflict characters in your story, and this distinct way of operating and making decisions will set them apart and make them more interesting. You also want to give your antagonist a flaw. But not just any flaw. You want to think about how this flaw shapes their downfall in the story. You want to show little hints of this flaw in the early stages of their journey, and then think about how this flaw makes them fall as a character later on. For example, they might be someone who is very prideful or obsessive, and these blind spots should eventually contribute to their ultimate defeat. For example, if they are someone greedy, maybe the protagonist is able to use this to advantage by presenting them with an opportunity that sounds too good to be true. And so the villain falls for this opportunity, not realizing that it was some kind of deception. Or if the antagonist is someone who believes that everyone likes them, maybe they're a bit narcissistic, this could ultimately lead to their downfall when they realize that all the people and the allies that they thought they had have turned against them. So this and these flaws can make it more interesting when you eventually show your antagonist's downfall later on. Show how your antagonist escalates over time. They should be someone dangerous at the beginning, but they should become more dangerous as the story progresses. And essentially, as the protagonist becomes stronger, your antagonist should become more desperate to stop them. This desperation can really make them intriguing as a character over time. Over time, they should become more dangerous or more powerful, which does make it more exciting when your protagonist does eventually defeat the antagonist. When designing your antagonist in a manga or comic, their visual aspect will be really important. You want to ensure that their design should reflect and contrast the protagonist in some way. Their design should also reflect the antagonist's personality. So think about how you can convey your antagonist's story in the design you're creating, which will also help them to stand out and feel more believable as a character. When you're making them more of a contrast to the protagonist, think about how you can oppose their designs or color schemes in some way, which will also help to reinforce the fact that these characters are both very different and conflicting even without explaining it to your audience. Ultimately, you want to ensure that your antagonist is someone who feels very memorable. Whether they are someone who is intimidating, or they are someone extremely powerful, or even if they are someone who is more silent, which makes them feel more eerie, they should be someone who has a presence in your story and makes them feel more memorable and intimidating, and means that they command attention on the page. Thank you so much for joining me in today's video, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know what kind of antagonist you're creating, because I would love to hear your thoughts, and I'm sure others would love to hear your thoughts too. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!